People who have worked for the ultra-wealthy, what are some of their deepest, darkest secrets? There's a few, but having a nude painting of yourself in the foyer of guest house was one. I couldn't believe it. LOL. A friend is a house manager for a centerfold married to a now-deceased several hundred millionaire. Her places are filled with 10 to 30-year-old nudes on herself in every art format. It was awkward at first, apparently. If I had a vagina that had earned me $100 million, I'd also have pics of it all over my house. I did a personal IT service for an incredible wealthy guy in Tucson. House overlooking the city from the foothills, 8-foot single-pane windows, etc. He had a ranch of at least 40,000 acres in Texas, and most of his dollars was from oil. His biggest secret was that he knew most people only liked him for his wealth, including his present wife, 2 kids, and 2 stepkids, and they'd cut ties in a heartbeat if it disappeared. Some people are so poor, all they have is money. Ah yes, I would like to be exactly this much poor, please, and thank you. Enjoying it so far? Give it a like. Want more? Tap subscribe and keep watching. I did a week worth of work on the ranch of the guy who invented the fleshlight. Man was loaded. He had a giant house with a Spanish fountain out front, a spa gym, office with a huge Roman-style pool and statuary, an attached walled garden with stone Buddha statue, and an Indian tiger tower, a massive barn, and his own disco club. It was quite the compound. His dark secret was that he was kind of boring and down-to-earth for what he's famous for. Every day he'd drive a UTV around and look at the birds. His wife was quite nice too, though maybe a little out of touch. She complained about how hard it was to buy legitimate antiques, the aforementioned statues, etc., because countries were cracking down on exporting cultural relics. They treated me well. Would come around to check and see if I had enough water. Would come chat with me for a bit each day. Honestly, pretty nice people. Worked for 3 to 4 billionaires. Was in construction management and did multi-year remodels of some homes and some new builds. I've been on their jets, yachts, visited 3 of their 9 homes, drove their cars, helped move Picassos across the 30,000 square foot house. You name it. My biggest takeaways are 1, that many of them have no real understanding how the real world works, and 2, that it's often a lonely, fearful, and sad life. They stress over who is trying to take advantage of them. My wealthiest client ever drove a Prius because she was afraid of being targeted. They paid to have 24/7 security at the house because they fear the eat the rich crowd and live in paranoia. Their kids have nothing to aspire to, no dreams, and any accomplishments are mere expectations. I got out of it because the stress was unbearable when pulling a rabbit out of your ass becomes what you're known for, and the expectations are that you will always be able to do that. They throw money at your bosses, and your boss agrees to the impossible, and then you have to get it done. They could try running a banana stand to learn how the world works. There's always money in that. They are unusually cheap, or most I've worked for are. I'm in wine sales and cellar management, and I had a client who had over $10 million in First Growth Bordeaux and Grand Cru Burgundy, and he served $20 Pinot and Bubbles Cava at his Xmas party for his best friends and celebrities. He died with a $10 million cellar. I managed a Blockbuster a long time ago that was on the border between a lower middle class and a rich neighborhood. One day, some middle-aged guy started yelling and threatening to fight one of my employees. He was being an abusive prick, so I went to find out what the deal was. Guy was screaming over a $2.14 late fee. I mean, just absolutely plastering insults all over my employee. I told him he owed it fair and square, and to pay or get out, or I would call the cops. He stormed off, cursing loud enough for the whole store to hear. I step outside to make sure he leaves, and watch in shock as he gets into a pristine white Rolls Royce. That lesson stuck with me. A surprising number of them are hoarders, like mansion-level filth hidden behind marble gates. Rich doesn't mean clean. Seriously, this is no joke. A friend was a private chef in Malibu to a super wealthy family, and they not only left their messes and garbage everywhere, they wouldn't even close the cabinets and drawers that they opened. The housekeeper said they wouldn't flush the toilets after using them either. So gross. He was divorced and married a second wife. He never divorced, and the second wife is a mistress that he parades around as his wife. Actual wife doesn't give a shit as long as they're still rich, but won't let his second batch of kids inherit their joint assets. So he had to buy his second wife some income properties for security. She'll be okay though. He bought her 100 mil worth of income properties. Changed out some home security stuff for a very wealthy older couple, like 10B+. The wife was incredibly kind, and if encountered in the wild, she would be totally normal appearing. It was the little things in their home that blew me away. Handcrafted everything. They even sent me and my guys home with a bunch of stuff from their garden. There's a saying, money talks, wealth whispers. And in my experience, it's totally true. The richest people I know aren't super flashy. They invest in quality products, not flashy ones. I mean, shit. My grandma is crazy rich, and she still drives a 15-year-old Toyota. It's not until you get to get house and see her multi-million-dollar art collection that you realize how much she has. The woman gave me a $20,000 painting once just because I said I liked it. Worked in the tech investor/startup space. Ended up at WEF in Davos one year. I remember eating a $32 hamburger, listening to a man brag about influencing elections in developing nations to support his commercial interests. He spoke so casually, like he was sharing old college stories. He shared missteps he had made in his political schemes that had caused civil wars, and lamented on the tens of thousands of lives that his errors had indirectly taken. Drunk, at a bar on a mountain, he talked through literal crimes with the tone of someone who had fucked up at their day job. I remember that he believed it was his duty to influence, that whatever underlying meritocracy granted him enough power to buy elections also required him to guide the poor, silly populations underneath him. He left me with a check for his beer. I used to be close friends with a kid who was best friends with a kid a little younger, whose mom's family was probably worth $5 billion. We would go over to his house and do whatever activity you could dream of. It was there. Every single night there were sterno pans with dinner from one of the local high-end restaurant if a chef didn't come in and make something. We would take the family jet to his apartment in a large city every couple months. Limo to hangar, get on, laid out food on flight, limo directly off plane and to apartment. One time, his marijuana dealer in the city was out of town, so he asked me to bring an ounce for him, back when it was $400 per ounce for high-end. I had made the flight before, so I knew security was no issue, but as a 20-year-old kid, guessing, that was a huge expense. I felt awful bringing it up after everything we didn't pay for, and I did smoke, but not at his rate. We always sat courtside at basketball games, went to a club afterwards, and spent north of $25,000, ate at the best places, etc. So I just ate it. We were in limo back to plane after that weekend, and he was fucking around with his bag and pulled out $1,000 in an envelope and was like, "My bad man, I totally forgot to get you this." He was young dude, kind, soft-spoken. Haven't seen him in probably 15 years. My dad cleans houses, ranging from the tiniest studio apartment to houses with their own security guard and driveway in SoCal. The biggest houses, the cheapest, and most judgmental people. I once went to a house where their master closet was bigger than our house, 1,800 square feet. The owner was the nastiest person I've ever met. Middle-class people were the best. They always tipped and gave free food to my parents. Not that I doubt you, but I'm having trouble imagining an 1,800 square foot closet. Guess I'm not rich enough. I didn't even know it was possible until I saw it. I don't know if it's a deep secret, but they did seem to hide the reality from the image. They seemed like a stand-up family guy who'd created an empire from nothing. Their child committed suicide on Father's Day, and it was a clear statement of why they were doing it on that day from people who were close enough. But the death was very much hidden and written off as an accident and portrayed as something other than what it was. It wasn't an accident. It was a tortured soul's last outcry to their horrible, abusive father, who was a piece of shit as an employer, so I can only imagine the horror he was as a parent. They chose that day to end their life, and even though I was a child when it happened, I remember realizing how much the day they chose was impactful in the grim circumstances. I didn't work for the ultra-wealthy, but my mother, who was extremely beautiful but not wealthy, grew up as a socialite, the kind who was a debutante and was supposed to marry an ultra-wealthy man. Instead, she married my dad, who was a struggling artist. But one of her best friends came to visit our humble home when I was 12 years old in 1992. She was an heiress to a huge fortune, and she had just come from Paris, where she had seen the Calvin Klein runway show. She had liked the clothes so much that she bought the entire collection. However, since it was literally the pieces worn by the models, instead of off the rack, they didn't really fit the way they should, and sometimes her shirt just fell off. Luckily for her, she had just gotten a new boob job and was happy to show it off. She was on a lot of prescription pills and drank alcohol from dawn to dusk and also chain smoked. We didn't have a guest room, so she shared my bed. She would periodically wake up, take pills, and smoke, burning holes in my comforter. One night, she suddenly screamed in her sleep, "You better get that bitch out of my house or I'm calling the cops!" 12-year-old me thought she was fascinating and hilarious. The night she woke me up screaming and cursing, I got out of bed and went in the living room to find my father watching the LA riots on TV because he said, "It's a lot more peaceful than what's going on here." Don't forget to tell us your stories in the comments section. Check out our other videos, and we'll see you next time.